Mariselle King heard the laughter before she understood it was meant for her. Not loud laughter, not the kind that filled a room honestly. It was softer than that, sharper than that, hidden behind champagne glasses and polite hands pressed over smiling mouths. The kind of laughter rich people used when they wanted cruelty to look civilized. She stood at the entrance of the private charity gala with one hand wrapped around a silver clutch she had borrowed from her cousin, her black satin dress smooth against her curves, her curls pinned low at the back of her neck, her lips painted a deep wine red she had chosen because Darius once told her it made her look unforgettable. For 3 seconds, she told herself she was imagining it. Then she saw him, Darius Vale, her Darius, the man she had loved for 4 years, the man whose business plans she had edited at midnight, whose mother she had driven to hospital appointments, whose rent she had quietly covered twice when his investor money delayed. He stood near the marble staircase beneath a chandelier shaped like falling ice, his hand resting on another woman's waist. Not casually, not accidentally, possessively, the woman beside him wore ivory silk, diamonds at her throat, and the peaceful smile of someone who had never had to beg life to be gentle. She leaned close to him and whispered something near his ear. Darius laughed. Mariselle stopped breathing. A waiter nearly collided with her, then shifted away with a practiced apology. Nobody asked if she was okay. Nobody ever did when pain looked quiet enough to ignore. Across the room, Darius finally noticed her. His smile disappeared. For one foolish heartbeat, Mariselle thought he would come toward her. Explain, apologize, look ashamed. Instead, he looked irritated, like she had walked into the wrong scene and ruined the lighting. The woman beside him followed his gaze. Her eyes moved over Maricelle's dress, her figure, her shoes, her borrowed clutch, and paused with lazy amusement. "Oh," the woman said softly, "that's her?" The words should not have carried across the room. But they did. They landed. People heard them. People pretended not to. Darius tightened his jaw. "Mariselle, I didn't think you'd actually come." She walked toward him because turning around would have made the room win. Every step felt longer than the last. Every chandelier above her felt like a spotlight. Her heels clicked against the marble, steady, dignified, refusing to tremble even as something inside her folded in half. "You invited me," she said. Darius released a small laugh, the kind designed to make her look emotional before she had even raised her voice. "I sent that invitation weeks ago." Things changed. The woman beside him smiled as if kindness bored her. "Darius didn't know how to tell you. He's too gentle sometimes." Gentle. Mariselle looked at him. This man had watched her choose cheaper groceries so he could attend networking dinners. This man had called her his piece when he was faced and called her too sensitive when he started winning. This man had kissed her forehead 2 nights ago and said he was tired when really he was preparing to stand here beside another woman. "Who is she?" Mariselle asked. The woman tilted her head. "Vivienne Ashcroft." The name moved through the nearby guests like a password. Old money, private boards, private jets. A father whose name sat on hospital wings and university halls. Darius adjusted his cufflinks. "Vivienne and I are engaged." For a moment, the music sounded far away. Mariselle felt her face remain calm, and that frightened her more than tears would have. That was the strange thing about heartbreak. Sometimes it did not break you loudly. Sometimes it taught your body to become a statue. "Engaged," she repeated. Darius stepped closer, lowering his voice but not enough. "Don't make this dramatic." A guest near the floral arch looked away too late. Vivian's smile widened by a fraction. Maybe someone should get her water. Something hot moved through Maricelle's chest. Not anger. Not yet. Anger had a shape. this was worse. This was the feeling of realizing you had been loving someone who had been measuring your usefulness the entire time. When? She asked. Darius exhaled through his nose. Mariselle, when did you get engaged? His eyes flickered around the room. This isn't the place. You made it the place. The silence that followed was thin and dangerous. Vivienne gave a delicate laugh. I understand this must be difficult, but you should know Darius has responsibilities now. His life is moving into a different circle. A different circle. Maricelle's almost smiled. She had helped him enter that circle. She had rewritten the proposal that impressed Vivienne's father. She had stayed up the three nights preparing the presentation that got him into this room. She had chosen the tie he was wearing. Darius glanced at Vivienne, then back at Mariselle. The look on his face changed into something colder, something performative. You were good to me, he said, but love isn't always enough. The words were quiet. The humiliation was not. Mariselle heard someone whisper behind her. Poor thing. Poor thing. She swallowed once. You should have told me. I tried, Darius said. You don't listen when you're emotional. That one almost did it. That one almost made her blink too fast. Because he had always done this. Taken the wound he created and accused her of bleeding incorrectly. Vivienne touched the diamond at her throat. Darius, darling, your father-in-law is waiting. Father-in-law. Already. Mariselle looked at Darius one last time, searching his face for the man she had believed existed. There was no grief there, no apology, only discomfort that she had forced him to witness the consequences of his own cruelty. I hope she knows, Mariselle said softly. Darius frowned. Knows what? Her voice stayed low. That you only call a woman dramatic after you've finished using her. The air shifted. Vivienne's smile thinned. Darius's eyes hardened. Careful. Mariselle nodded once, as if he had confirmed something. I was, for 4 years. She turned before he could answer. But the room had already begun feeding on her. The stares followed her like cold fingers. Someone moved aside too quickly, like heartbreak was contagious. Her throat burned. Her palms felt numb. She needed air. She needed one quiet corner where her body could remember how to breathe. She moved past the champagne tower, past the silent auction table, past a circle of women who stopped talking as she approached. Then she heard Darius behind her. Mariselle. She should have kept walking. She knew that. But pain had a cruel habit of turning you around one final time. Darius stopped a few feet away, his handsome face tense with irritation instead of remorse. Don't embarrass me tonight. She stared at him. A laugh almost escaped her, but it would have sounded broken, and she refused to give him that. You embarrassed yourself. You don't understand how these rooms work. His voice dropped lower. Vivienne's family can change everything for me, and I was just the woman who helped you get close enough. He said nothing. That silence answered better than confession. Maricelle's eyes stung, but she held them open. Did you ever love me? For the first time, something like discomfort crossed his face. Not guilt, not sorrow, discomfort. You were what I needed at the time. The words entered her gently. That was what made them cruel. They did not stab. They settled, like ash. For 1 second, Mariselle forgot where she was. Forgot the gala, forgot the guests, forgot the music. She saw herself in all the rooms she had made smaller for him. She saw every apology she had given just to keep peace, every dream she postponed. Every time she convinced herself being chosen later was still being chosen. Her lips parted, but no words came. Darius seemed relieved by that. He mistook her silence for defeat. Then Vivienne appeared beside him, slipping her hand into his. There you are. My father wants to introduce you to Chairman Kang. At that name, several guests straightened. Even Darius changed. His posture sharpened. His expression polished itself. Mariselle followed their gaze toward the far end of the room. A man had entered without announcement, yet somehow the room had already noticed him. Tall, Korean, dressed in a black tailored suit with no unnecessary shine, no loud display of wealth, no need to prove he belonged anywhere. His hair was neatly pushed back from a face so calm it felt almost dangerous. He did not smile. He did not scan the room like he wanted approval. The room adjusted around him. That was power, Mariselle realized, not noise, gravity. Kang Seojun, someone whispered behind her. He owns half the development project. Darius immediately stepped forward with Vivienne, his ambition practically visible beneath his skin. Mariselle should have left then. She should have slipped out through the side door with what remained of her dignity. But her legs felt locked beneath her. Kang Seojun's gaze moved through the room, quiet and unreadable, until it stopped on her. Not on Vivienne's diamonds, not on Darius's eager smile, on her. Mariselle looked away first. She hated that he had seen her standing there in the aftermath of being discarded. She hated that her pain had become part of the evening's decoration. Darius approached Kang with a polished smile. Chairman Kang, Darius Vale. I've admired your work for years. Kang Seojun looked at Darius's extended hand for half a second before shaking it. Have you? His voice was low, controlled, almost bored. Darius laughed too quickly. Absolutely. This is my fiancée, Vivienne Ashcroft. Vivienne offered her hand. Kang took it briefly, politely. Nothing in his face changed. Then his eyes moved past them again, back to Mariselle. Darius noticed. His expression tightened. And that is... He paused, as if deciding what version of her would cost him least. An old friend. Old friend. Something inside Mariselle went still. 4 years reduced to 2 words that could be swept under a rug. Vivienne smiled. She was just leaving. Mariselle's fingers tightened around her clutch. She was tired. Tired in a place too deep for sleep. Tired of shrinking so men could look taller. Tired of being loyal to people who only respected women they could benefit from publicly. She turned toward the exit. Then Darius spoke again, softly enough to sound private, but loudly enough to cut. Mariselle, don't make a scene. Please, please, as if she were the danger, as if her pain was the threat. Something in her finally snapped, not loudly, not wildly, but with a clean, quiet break. She stopped walking. Kang Seojun stood only a few feet away now, watching with the same unreadable calm. The room had gone alert. Darius looked nervous. Vivienne looked amused. Mariselle looked at the marble floor, then at the exit, then at the man everyone seemed afraid to disappoint. She did not know him. He did not know her. That should have made it impossible. Instead, desperation made her brave. She stepped toward Kang Seojun, close enough that his attention sharpened, close enough that Darius's smile vanished completely. Mariselle lifted her chin, her voice low enough that only Kang could hear the tremble she was hiding. Act like you love me, she whispered, just for 1 minute. Kang Seojun did not move. His eyes held hers, dark, still, impossible to read. For 1 terrifying second, Mariselle thought he would expose her, ask who she was, step away and leave her humiliation naked in front of everyone. Instead, he slowly turned his body toward her, closing the space with terrifying ease. His hand came to rest lightly at the small of her back, warm through the satin, not gripping, not claiming cruelly, just enough to steady her before the room could see her shake. Then he looked over her shoulder at Darius. His voice was calm. 1 minute, Mariselle's breath caught. Kang Seojun lowered his gaze back to her face. For the first time that night, Someone looked at her like she was not an inconvenience, like she was not a mistake, like she had not been discarded. "No," he said quietly, "that won't be enough." And before Mariselle could understand what he meant, Kang Seojun lifted her hand to his lips in front of the entire room, and Darius' veil went completely still. For a moment, Mariselle forgot the room existed. Kang Seojun's lips touched the back of her hand with such quiet certainty that the gesture felt less like performance and more like a decision he had already made before she found the courage to ask. The entire gala seemed to inhale at once. Champagne glasses paused halfway to mouths. Conversations died in small, elegant pieces. Even the string quartet in the corner seemed to soften, as if the music itself understood something dangerous had just entered the room. Mariselle stood frozen beside him, her hand still held in his, her heartbeat so loud she wondered if he could feel it through her fingers. Kang did not squeeze. He did not overdo the moment. He simply kept her close with one hand at her back and the other around hers, steady enough to make the lie believable, gentle enough to make her afraid of how much she needed it to be true. Across from them, Darius looked as if someone had removed the floor beneath his polished shoes. His eyes moved from Kang's face to Maricelle's hand, then to the way Kang stood beside her, not like a stranger helping a woman out of pity, but like a man whose patience had just ended. Vivian's smile stayed in place, but it had become too tight, too bright, the kind of smile a woman wore when the room had stopped obeying her. "Chairman Kang," Darius said carefully, forcing a laugh that arrived empty. "I didn't realize you and Mariselle knew each other." Kang released Maricelle's hand slowly, but he did not step away. "You didn't ask." The silence that followed was clean and humiliating. Maricelle's throat tightened. She should have said some things. She should have helped the lie stand properly. But she could barely breathe. Kang's presence beside her was overwhelming in the strangest way. He was not loud. He was not dramatic. He did not rush to perform masculinity for the room. He simply existed with so much controlled authority that everyone else seemed suddenly less certain of themselves. Darius swallowed. "Of course! I just mean, Mariselle never mentioned." Kang looked at him. "Why would she mention me to you?" It was not a question. It was a blade placed gently on glass. Someone behind them whispered. Vivian's fingers tightened around Darius's arm. Mariselle felt it then, the first strange flicker of something beneath her pain. Not happiness, not triumph, something quieter. The shock of being defended without begging for it. Darius's jaw flexed. "Mariselle and I have history." "I heard," Kang said. His gaze did not move from Darius. "You called her an old friend." The words returned to the room like evidence. Darius looked at Mariselle then, warning in his eyes, as if even now he expected her to protect him. That almost made her laugh. 4 years of loving him, and he still believed her dignity existed to serve his reputation. Mariselle lifted her chin. Her voice came out softer than she wanted, but it did not break. "That is what he chose to call me." Kang turned his head slightly toward her, the smallest shift, barely visible, but she felt his attention sharpen. "And what should he have called you?" The question was simple. Too simple. It reached somewhere tender before she could protect herself. Mariselle looked at Darius. She saw the man who once cried in her kitchen when his first company failed. She saw herself sitting beside him on the floor, holding his hand, telling him failure was not the end of him. She saw him kissing her knuckles and promising he would never forget who stayed. And now here he was, wearing the tie she had bought him, standing beside a woman whose last name opened doors, pretending loyalty had been a phase he outgrew. "Someone who stayed," Mariselle said. The room went painfully still. Darius blinked. For the first time that night, shame touched his face. Not enough, but enough for Mariselle to see it. Kang saw it too. Then remember that, Kang said quietly. Vivian gave a delicate laugh, trying to rescue the atmosphere. This is getting rather emotional, don't you think? It's a charity gala, not a courtroom. Kang finally looked at her. People often confuse consequences with drama. Vivian's smile faltered. Mariselle felt the heat of every stare on her skin. Her courage, so sudden and sharp a minute ago, began to drain from her body. The room was too bright, the diamonds too cold, Darius too close, Kang too impossible. She had asked a stranger to act like he loved her, and he had done it so well that now everyone was watching, as if they expected the rest of the story to exist. But it did not. There was no story, no romance, no secret affair, no grand history between them. Just a woman too humiliated to leave as the abandoned one. Her fingers trembled once against her clutch. Kang noticed. Of course he noticed. He lowered his voice without looking at her. Breathe. One word. Not sweet. Not dramatic. Quiet enough that nobody else could use it against her. Mariselle inhaled slowly. Kang's hand remained at her back, steady as a wall. Darius saw the movement and something dark passed through his expression. Jealousy looked ugly on him, smaller than she expected. Mariselle, he said, voice tight. Can we speak privately? She almost answered out of habit. That was what frightened her. Some part of her, trained by years of managing his moods, still prepared to obey the change in his tone. Kang's hand did not move, but his presence beside her made the habit visible. Mariselle felt it. The old pull, the old fear of being called difficult, the old instinct to make the man who hurt her comfortable. She looked at Darius and realized she was exhausted from being well behaved in rooms where people had no intention of being kind. No, she said. The word came quietly. It changed everything. Darius stared at her. No, not tonight. Vivian's eyes narrowed. Darius stepped closer. You're upset. You're not thinking clearly. Kang moved before Mariselle could answer. Only half a step. But it placed him between Darius and her just enough for the room to understand. She said no. Darius froze. A murmur moved through the guests. Mariselle looked at Kang's shoulder, at the clean line of his black suit, at the way he had positioned himself without making her feel trapped. He had not spoken for her until the boundary was already hers. Something about that nearly broke her more than the betrayal. Darius's face reddened. With respect, Chairman Kang, this is personal. Kang's eyes stayed calm, then behaved personally, not publicly. It was devastating because he did not raise his voice. Vivian pulled at Darius's arm, whispering his name through her teeth. Darius stepped back, but his gaze stayed on Mariselle with a look she had never seen from him before. Not love, not regret, possession. The kind men discovered only after another man refused to treat what they discarded as worthless. Mariselle hated that it still hurt. She hated that part of her had once waited years for him to look at her with urgency, and now that he finally did, it was only because someone powerful had placed value where he had placed shame. Kang turned slightly toward her. Would you like to leave? The question startled her, not because he asked, but because he made it sound like a choice. Mariselle nodded once. She did not trust her voice. Kang guided her from the center of the room, not rushing, not hiding, not allowing anyone to mistake their exit for retreat. His palm hovered near her back without pressing. He walked at her pace. Every eye followed them. Mariselle kept her head high until they reached the corridor beyond the ballroom doors. Only then did the noise soften behind them, swallowed by thick walls and expensive silence. The hallway was lined with gold-framed mirrors and white orchids arranged in glass vases. Far from the chandeliers, the air felt cooler. Mariselle took 3 steps away from him and finally let her shoulders fall. She covered her mouth with one hand, not to cry loudly, but to hold herself together. Kang stood a respectful distance behind her. He did not touch her. He did not ask foolish questions. He let the silence hold. That almost made her cry harder. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice rough. "I shouldn't have dragged you into that." "You didn't drag me." She turned slightly. "I asked you to lie. You asked for help." Mariselle looked at him then. Really looked. Up close, Kang Seojun was younger than his reputation made him seem, perhaps mid-30s, but his stillness carried the weight of someone who had learned early that emotion could be used as a weapon if shown carelessly. His eyes were dark and focused, not soft exactly, but attentive in a way that made it difficult to hide. "Why did you do it?" she asked. "Because he was enjoying your silence." The answer came too quickly to be polite. Mariselle felt it land somewhere deep. Her lips pressed together. She looked away before her eyes betrayed her. "You don't know him. I know men who lower their voices when they want a woman to feel unreasonable." Her breath caught. Kang's gaze remained steady. "I know men who call loyalty history once it becomes inconvenient." Mariselle laughed once, but it broke halfway. "You sound experienced." Something unreadable passed through his face. Observant. The word settled between them. A door opened at the far end of the corridor, and 2 guests stepped out, saw them, and immediately pretended they had not. Mariselle straightened by instinct. Kang noticed that too. "You don't have to perform for people who already decided not to understand you," he said. She looked at him. "That sounds easy when you're Kang Seojun. It is not easy." His voice lowered. "It is necessary." For a moment, neither of them moved. The distant music floated through the wall, muffled and elegant, as if nothing terrible had happened inside. Mariselle wiped carefully beneath one eye, saving what she could of her makeup. "I should go. Where?" The question was not controlling. It was practical. That made it worse somehow. She looked down at her clutch. "Home. Can someone come for you?" She shook her head before thinking. "No." Then, because embarrassment still had teeth, she added, "I came in Darius's car." Kang's expression did not change, but the air around him did. It became colder. "He brought you here?" "He sent a driver." "I thought." She stopped. The sentence was humiliating before it finished. "I thought he wanted me beside him. I thought I mattered. I thought 4 years meant more than a seating mistake." Kang reached into his jacket and removed his phone. "My driver will take you." "No." The word came fast. Too fast. He paused. Mariselle swallowed. "I'm sorry. I just, don't want to owe anyone anything tonight." Kang studied her for a moment. "You don't owe me." That's what people say before they remember the debt. His eyes changed slightly. Not offended. Interested. As if she had said something honest enough to keep. "Then consider it repayment." "For what?" "For telling the truth in a room full of people who survive by avoiding it." Mariselle did not know what to do with that. Compliments usually came to her dressed as expectations. "You're so strong, so endure more. You're so understanding, so forgive faster. You're so loyal, so stay longer." But Kang's words asked nothing from her. They simply named something. Her phone vibrated inside her clutch. She flinched. Kang's gaze dropped briefly, then returned to her face. Mariselle opened the clutch and looked at the screen. "Darius, of course." She declined the call. It rang again immediately. She declined again. A message appeared. "Don't leave with him. We need to talk." Another message followed before Risouth. "You're making yourself look cheap." The last word blurred. Not because she did not see it clearly, But because for a second she saw every version of herself that had tolerated being spoken to like this in private, and then watched him smile in public. Kang did not ask to see the phone. He did not need to. Her face had already told him enough. Block him for tonight, he said. Mariselle gave a tired smile. You give orders naturally, only when the solution is obvious. And if I don't take orders? Better. She looked at him, surprised. There was no smile on his face, but something close to approval lived in his eyes. The phone vibrated again. This time it was a call from an unknown number. Mariselle frowned. That's strange, she answered before thinking, mostly because it was not Darius. Hello? At first there was only breathing. Then a woman's voice, low and hurried, said, Mrs. King? Mariselle stiffened. Yes, you don't know me. I work with Ashcroft Holdings. Please don't hang up. Kang's attention sharpened immediately. Maricelle's fingers tightened around the phone. Who is this? The woman's voice trembled. You need to leave the gala now. Darius didn't just get engaged. He gave them your proposal. Mariselle went cold. The hallway seemed to tilt. What proposal? But she already knew. The urban housing redevelopment concept. Her concept. The one she had built after months of research, sleepless nights, community interviews, and financial modeling. The one Darius had said was too small, too emotional, too focused on people instead of profit. The one she had saved under a private file name on his laptop because he claimed his system had better software. The woman whispered, They're presenting it tonight under his name. Marizelle's hand fell slowly from her ear. Kang stepped closer. What happened? Before she could answer, the ballroom doors opened behind them. Darius stood there, breath uneven, eyes locked on her phone. For the first time all night, he looked afraid. Mariselle, he said quietly. Give me the phone. Mariselle did not move. The phone remained in her hand, warm against her palm, the unknown woman's warnings still echoing in her ear like a sound that had no place inside. Reality. Darius stood at the mouth of the corridor, with one hand gripping the edge of the ballroom door, his face composed badly, like a man trying to hold a mask in place while the glue melted underneath. Behind him, golden light spilled from the gala, music floating out in delicate waves, too beautiful for what had just been said. Kang Seojun stepped closer to Mariselle, not touching her, but the space between him and Darius changed instantly. It narrowed into something dangerous. Give me the phone, Darius repeated, softer this time. Softer was how he always tried to sound when he wanted control to look like concern. Mariselle looked at him, and for a moment she saw two men standing in the same body. The first was the man she once loved, the one who used to fall asleep on her couch with spreadsheets open across his chest. The second was this stranger in a designer suit, asking for evidence like it belonged to him. Her voice came out quiet. What did you do? Darius glanced at Kang, then forced a small laugh. You're upset. Someone is clearly trying to stir things up. What did you do? She asked again. The second time, her voice did not tremble. Darius's eyes sharpened. Mariselle, lower your voice. Kang turned his head slightly toward her. Do not. 2 words. Calm, firm. They struck something in her chest she had not realized was starving. Do not shrink. Do not soften the truth to make him comfortable. Do not protect the man who came to steal from you after leaving you bleeding in public. Darius's jaw tightened. This has nothing to do with you. Chairman Kang. Kang's expression remained still. You walked out here to speak to her. Then speak carefully. The warning was quiet enough that anyone else might have missed it. Darius did not. His face flushed at the edges. Mariselle lifted the phone back to her ear, but the line had gone dead. She looked at the screen. No caller ID, No number to call back. Just a ghost with a truth sharp enough to cut through 4 years. Her thoughts raced backward. The proposal. Her proposal. Not a casual idea. Not a few notes. Months of work. Months of waking before sunrise, because her day job at the foundation drained everything from her except the stubborn part of her that still believed neglected communities deserved beauty, too. She had interviewed elderly tenants in Crown Heights who cried when they talked about eviction notices. She had built a model that proved affordable units did not have to be ugly, invisible, or pushed to the city's forgotten edges. She had designed community kitchens, childcare floors, green rooftops, emergency rent buffers, and a profit structure that still appealed to investors without sacrificing the people whose lives sat beneath the numbers. Darius had called it emotional. He had called it sentimental. He had said investors did not care about dignity. Then he had taken it. "Tonight," she whispered. Darius looked away too quickly. That was the confession. Marizelle's stomach turned. "You were presenting it tonight?" His silence lasted 1 second too long. "You don't understand how these things work." The sentence landed like a dirty fingerprint over every sacrifice she had made. "I wrote it. You helped. I built it. You don't have the connections to move something like that." Darius stepped closer, lowering his voice again, forgetting that Kang was close enough to hear every word. "I was going to bring you in later." Mariselle stared at him. Later. After the Ashcroft board approved the first phase, after the deal was secure. You have to be practical. Practical. She remembered all the nights he used that word like a broom to sweep her dreams into corners. Practical meant wait. Practical meant not yet. Practical meant give me your brilliance, and be grateful when I give you proximity to your own work. Kang's eyes moved to Marizelle's face, and something in his gaze darkened. Not pity. Recognition. As if he knew exactly what it meant when a person's labor disappeared beneath someone else's ambition. Darius took another step forward. "Listen to me. If you challenge this publicly, nobody will believe you. Vivienne's father is hosting. My name is already on the deck. The committee has copies. Don't humiliate yourself again. Again." Mariselle blinked once. The word opened something old. Suddenly, she was not in the corridor anymore. She was 21, standing in a university lecture hall while a professor praised a male classmate for an urban equity argument Mariselle had made in study group the night before. She was 24, watching a supervisor present her community outreach strategy as Team Insight, while her name sat in tiny font at the end of the report. She was 26, sitting in Darius's apartment, cutting her own birthday dinner short because he said his meeting mattered more. She was every version of herself who had stayed quiet because quiet women were called mature and women who named theft were called bitter. Darius softened his voice as if sensing her fracture. "Mariselle, don't let one bad night ruin everything we built." Her laugh came out soundless. "We? Yes, we." He reached for her wrist. He did not get close enough. Kang's hand caught his before it touched her. The movement was swift, controlled, almost graceful. Darius froze. Kang held his wrist lightly, but something in Darius's face showed it was not light at all. "Do not reach for her without permission," Kang said. The corridor turned silent. Maricelle's breath caught in her throat. Darius's eyes flicked to Kang's hand, then to his face. "Let go." Kang did, immediately, as if he had only needed to make the point once. Darius pulled his wrist back, humiliated. "You have no idea what she's like," he snapped, losing polish for the first time. "She makes everything personal. She gets attached to ideas like they're children. She doesn't understand scale." Mariselle looked down, That almost hurt more than the engagement, because it was specific, because it proved he had listened all those years only to weaponize the softest parts of her later. Her attachment to people, her refusal to design beautiful buildings that displaced families, her belief that profit without conscience was just polished harm. Kang's voice cut through the air. Then why steal from someone you consider incapable? Darius went still. Mariselle looked up. The question sat between them, impossible to answer without becoming a confession. Darius's mouth opened, then closed. Kang tilted his head slightly. You either stole from a woman beneath you, which makes you pathetic, or you stole from a woman better than you, which makes you afraid. The silence after that was brutal. Darius's face hardened. This is a private matter. Not anymore. Kang turned to Mariselle. Do you have proof? Her first instinct was to say no. That was what years of being doubted had trained into her. But then she remembered the notebook, the drafts, the voice memos, the emails she had sent herself because some cautious part of her had learned not to trust verbal promises. She remembered the version history saved on her tablet at home, the photos from site visits, the community interview recordings. Proof existed. Not clean, maybe, not polished, but alive. Yes, she said. Darius's expression changed. Just a fraction. Enough. Kang nodded once. Good. Darius stepped back. You're making a mistake. Mariselle met his eyes. No. I think I made the mistake 4 years ago. The words did not come loudly. They did not need to. Darius flinched anyway. The ballroom doors opened wider behind him, and Vivienne appeared, flawless and sharp, her diamond necklace catching the light like ice. There you are, she said, looking only at Darius before her gaze slid to Mariselle. My father is about to begin the presentation. Is there a problem? Darius recovered too quickly. No problem. Mariselle watched him put himself back together in front of another woman, smooth the suit, smooth the face, smooth the lie. Vivienne's eyes moved to Kang. Her smile became careful. Chairman Kang, we would be honored if you joined us at the front. My father is eager to show you the redevelopment concept. Kang did not answer immediately. His gaze rested on Mariselle. It was not a question spoken aloud, but she understood it anyway. Do you want to walk away, or do you want to see what they took? Her heart pounded. Every sensible part of her wanted to leave, go home, lock the door, fall apart somewhere nobody could watch. But beneath the heartbreak, beneath the exhaustion, something else had started breathing. A self she had ignored too long. A self that had spent years being useful while other people became impressive. She looked at Vivienne. I'd like to see it. Vivienne blinked. Excuse me? Mariselle's voice remained steady. The redevelopment concept. I'd like to see what Darius is presenting. Darius stared at her. Mariselle. This time, his warning did not enter her body. It stayed outside. Useless. Kang extended his arm slightly, not touching her, simply offering a direction. Then we should not keep them waiting. The walk back into the ballroom felt different. Earlier, every eye had sliced her open. Now every eye still watched. But Mariselle felt Kang beside her like a shadow made of steel. Not rescuing her, not carrying her, witnessing. There was power in being witnessed correctly. At the front of the ballroom, a large screen glowed behind the stage. Vivienne's father, Alistair Ashcroft, stood with a microphone in one hand and the satisfied expression of a man used to applauding himself before others joined in. His silver hair was combed back. His tuxedo fit like money. When he saw Kang, his smile widened. When he saw Mariselle beside him, it faltered. Only briefly, but she saw it. Chairman Kang, Alistair said warmly. Perfect timing. Kang inclined his head. I hear the proposal is impressive. Darius moved toward the stage with Vivienne at his side. Mara C. remained near the front row, her fingers cold around her clutch. The screen changed. The title appeared. The Crown Meridian Renewal Initiative. Her lungs stopped. That was not just similar. That was hers. Nay, he muttered. Not the public name she had discussed casually with Darius. The private name she had typed at 2:14 a.m. after changing it 17 times. She remembered because she had cried. Afterward, not from sadness, but because the idea finally had a name. Darius stood under the screens and smiled at the room. This project began with a simple question, he said smoothly. What if redevelopment could protect legacy communities while still generating world-class returns? Maricelle's vision blurred at the edges. Those were her words. Her exact words from the opening slide. Kang looked at her. He must have seen something break across her face, because his voice lowered near her ear. Stay with me, she inhaled. Slowly, painfully, Darius continued, each sentence a theft wearing cufflinks. He spoke about displaced families as if he had ever sat with them. He spoke about dignity as if he had not just stripped hers in public. He spoke about community memory, neighborhood ownership, and long-term affordability like those words had not come from Marizelle's notebooks. Her interviews, her sleepless research, her heart. The audience listened, impressed. Of course they did. He was good at sounding like he cared once someone else taught him the language. Then the screen changed to a rendering. A rooftop garden, a childcare center, a shared kitchen named the hearth floor. Marizelle's knees nearly weakened. The hearth floor, her grandmother's phrase. Her grandmother, who used to say every building needed a hearth, even if nobody could afford a fireplace. Darius had laughed when Mariselle told him that. Now he was presenting it to investors. Kang saw her hand tremble. This time, when his fingers brushed hers, it was accidental at first, then not. He touched only the side of her hand, brief and grounding, a silent question. She did not move away. The contact lasted 2 seconds. It steadied her more than it should have. Darius's voice reached the final slide. Tonight, with Ashcroft Holdings and our strategic partners, we are prepared to take this vision forward. Applause began. Polite at first, then growing. Mariselle heard it like rain over a grave. Alistair stepped back to the microphone, smiling. And now, before we invite our lead investor to respond, I must acknowledge the remarkable young man who brought this concept to us, Darius Vale. The applause grew louder. Darius lowered his head with practiced humility. Mariselle looked at him, and the last fragile thread of who she believed he was finally snapped. Kang leaned slightly toward her. Do you want me to stop this? His voice was low. No performance, no demand. Just the offer of a blade, handle first. Mariselle looked at Sage, then at the room, then at her own reflection in the dark edge of the screen. For years, she had waited for someone to say her name in rooms where her work lived. For years, she had told herself recognition was not everything, but invisibility had a cost. Tonight, the bill had come due. No, she whispered. Kang's eyes moved to her. She lifted her chin. I want to stop it myself. Something shifted in his face then. Approval, maybe. Respect, definitely. Before he could answer, Mariselle stepped forward. The applause was still fading when her voice entered the room. There's one problem with the presentation. Every head turned. Darius went pale. Vivian's smile vanished. Alistair Ashcroft frowned as if a staff member had dropped a tray. Mariselle walked toward the stage, her heartbeat wild but her steps even. He didn't bring that concept to you, she said. Her eyes met Darius's. I did. The room froze. Darius's mouth opened. No sound came. Then, from somewhere near the back of the ballroom, a woman's voice shouted, trembling but clear, She's telling the truth. Mariselle turned. A young woman in a black server's uniform, stood near the service doors, one hand raised, her face terrified. I have the original files. The young woman in the black server's uniform stood near the service doors with one hand raised and fear written across her face, like she had stepped into traffic and could no longer turn back. For one suspended moment, nobody in the ballroom moved. The chandeliers burned above them. The projection screen still glowed behind Darius with Mariselle's stolen dream, stretched across it in expensive fonts. The applause had died so completely that Mariselle could hear her own pulse beating in her ears. I have the original files, the server said again, softer this time, but the words traveled anyway. Darius turned toward her slowly. Who are you? The girl swallowed. She looked young, maybe 23, with brown skin, short braids tucked behind her ears, and the exhausted courage of someone who had been afraid for too long and finally decided fear was less painful than silence. My name is Tova Ellis, she said. I'm a temp assistant for Ashcroft Holdings. I helped prepare the presentation deck. Vivienne moved first. She laughed, light and sharp. This is absurd. But her eyes went to Darius, not Tova. Darius's face had become unreadable in the ugliest way. Too blank, too still. Mariselle knew that expression. He wore it whenever he was calculating which emotion would save him best. Alistair Ashcroft stepped toward the microphone, his silver brows drawn together. Young lady, this is a private event. Tova's hand trembled, but she did not lower it. I know, sir. Then I suggest you remember your position. The sentence cut through the room with old money cruelty, polished enough not to sound like a threat, and cruel enough that everyone understood it was one. Mariselle felt the familiar ache in her chest. There it was again. The quiet command rich people gave when they wanted truth to return to the kitchen entrance. Tova's eyes flickered down. For a second, she looked like she might disappear into herself. Then Mariselle saw something in her face that felt painfully familiar. Not weakness, not uncertainty. The exhaustion of being useful to powerful people who expected gratitude for the privilege of being unseen. Mariselle stepped off the edge of the stage before she even decided to move. Tova, she said gently. The young woman looked at her. Mariselle walked toward her, careful, steady, ignoring the whispers that rose on both sides of the ballroom. You don't have to say anything you're not ready to say. Tova's eyes shone. I do. Behind Mariselle, Darius spoke quickly. This is obviously some kind of misunderstanding. Mariselle is upset. This woman is confused. The files were developed internally after months of consultation. Kang Seojun's voice came from near the front row, calm enough to make the room colder. Then there should be no issue reviewing the metadata. Darius went still. Vivienne turned her head toward Kang. Chairman Kang, surely you don't intend to entertain this spectacle. Kang's gaze did not shift from Darius. Truth often looks like spectacle to people who benefit from timing. The sentence landed cleanly. A few guests looked away because they wanted to agree, but did not want to be seen agreeing too soon. Mariselle reached Tova and stood beside her. Up close, the girl was shaking. There was a small crack in one of her nails, a smear of concealer near her jaw. Signs of a long day spent becoming invisible. Mariselle recognized every detail because she had lived too many years being praised for endurance, while nobody asked what it cost. How do you know? Mariselle asked quietly. Tova pulled a slim tablet from beneath the folded napkins on her service tray. Her fingers fumbled once before she unlocked it. Because when Mr. Vale sent the final materials, some of the embedded documents still had your name in the author history. Darius's voice cracked through the room. That's enough. Everyone turned to him. The loss of control was brief, but it showed. It showed too much. Tova flinched. Mariselle turned around slowly. Kang had already moved, not fast enough to cause alarm, just enough to place himself in the line between Darius and the two women. His presence did not ask for attention. It collected it. "Do not raise your voice at her," Kang said. Darius laughed once, bitter and strained. "This is unbelievable. You meet this woman 5 minutes ago and suddenly you're her personal guard?" Kang's eyes remained flat. "No." He paused. I listened. The simplicity of it silenced the room again. Mariselle felt those two words enter her chest like a hand resting over a bruise. I listened. Not I saved her, not I own her, not I am proving something. Just the one thing Darius had refused to do for 4 years. Tova held out the tablet to Mariselle. "I copied the folder because it felt wrong. I know I shouldn't have. But when I saw your name in the notes, and then saw him delete it." Her voice shook harder. "My mother lives in one of the Crown Meridian blocks. Your plan had tenant protections. His revised one removed half of them." Maricelle's body went cold. "What?" Tova swiped to another document and turned the tablet slightly. "This is the version being presented to investors after tonight. The public slides are beautiful, but the internal financial model changes the affordability terms after 36 months. It lets them convert several buildings to luxury units if revenue benchmarks aren't met." The room changed, not dramatically, not loudly, but with the quiet discomfort of wealthy people realizing cruelty had become visible. Mariselle took the tablet with both hands. Her eyes moved across the numbers. Line by line, betrayal opened inside betrayal. Darius had not only stolen her proposal, he had gutted it. Taken the language of protection, the emotional architecture, the community-centered beauty, then built a hidden exit inside it for profit. A way to use her compassion as decoration while doing the exact harm she designed the project to prevent. For a moment, she could not speak. Kang came to stand beside her, close enough to see the screen but far enough not to crowd her. "Is this yours?" he asked. Mariselle shook her head slowly. "The original is." "This isn't." Her voice sounded unfamiliar. "This is what happens when someone steals a heart and leaves the body." Kang looked at her then, and the room fell away for half a second. There was something in his eyes she had not seen before. Not softness exactly. Something more dangerous because it had restraint around it, respect with anger underneath. Darius stepped off the stage. "Mariselle, you're misreading technical revisions. You always do this. You get emotionally attached to the ideal version and ignore financial reality." Tova whispered, "That's not true." Darius snapped his gaze to her. "You are a temporary assistant." Tova lowered her eyes. Mariselle saw it, the shrinking. The way the body obeyed humiliation before the mind could protest. And something in her, something older than tonight, rose up. "Look at me," Mariselle said softly. Tova did. "You are not temporary because someone who needs your labor calls you that." Tova's lips parted. Mariselle handed the tablet back to her, then turned fully toward Darius. "And you don't get to keep using my emotions as evidence against my intelligence." The words struck harder than she expected. Even Kang glanced at her, as if the sentence had pleased him in some quiet, private way. Darius's face darkened. "You want the truth? Fine. Your plan was never going anywhere without me." "Maybe." Mariselle stepped closer. "But it was never supposed to go anywhere without the people it was built for." Alistair Ashcroft moved in then, voice smooth and paternal. "Mrs. King, I can appreciate your passion. Truly. But large-scale development requires difficult compromises. If you had brought this concept directly, perhaps we might have had a conversation. But you did not. Mr. Vale did." Mariselle turned to him. "Because Mr. Vale had access to rooms I was told to wait outside of." Alistair's mouth tightened. Kang spoke before Alistair could answer. Then I suggest the room corrects its mistake. Every face turned toward him. Vivian's eyes sharpened. Meaning? Kang looked at the glowing screen, then at the guests, then at Mariselle. Meaning, I will not attach capital to a proposal under disputed authorship, especially one with hidden terms that undermine its public mission. Darius went pale. Alistair's smile died. A ripple moved through the room, not whispering now, but murmuring, shifting, calculating. Money had changed sides. That was when powerful people started calling morality by its real name, risk. Vivian stepped forward, no longer pretending to be amused. Chairman Kang, surely this can be reviewed privately. It should have been handled honestly privately, Kang replied. You chose publicly. Mariselle looked down because if she kept looking at him, she feared something fragile inside her might mistake defense for safety. She could not afford that. Not yet. Not with her heart still bleeding from one man's betrayal and another man's kindness arriving like a storm. Just then, a voice from the left side of the room gasped. Mari! Mariselle turned. A woman in a sapphire blue jumpsuit was pushing through the crowd with a look of disbelief and fury. Her braids were swept into a high ponytail, gold hoops swinging, one hand clutching her phone, the other already raised like she was ready to fight the entire gala herself. Oh, absolutely not, the woman said. Tell me I am not walking in on a room full of overdressed vampires trying to eat my sister alive. A strangled laugh escaped Mariselle before she could stop it. It came out cracked but real. Sable. Sable King reached her and grabbed both her arms, scanning her face. You okay? Mariselle tried to nod. Sable's eyes narrowed. Don't lie to me in public. I taught you better. A few guests stared. Sable stared back harder. Yes, I said vampires. For the first time all night. Mariselle almost breathed without pain. Sable had always been like that. Younger by 2 years, louder by 10, built from the same childhood, but with sharper edges. Where Mariselle learned to survive by becoming useful, Sable survived by becoming impossible to ignore. She took one look at Darius on the stage, and her face transformed. You, Darius exhaled. Sable, not now. Not now, Sable laughed, but there was no humor in it. You humiliated my sister, stole her work, got engaged to a woman dressed like a wedding cake, and you still think you get to schedule the consequences. Mariselle whispered, Sables. No, I'm calm. Sable placed a hand over her chest. This is my gala voice. Someone coughed. Tova looked down to hide a smile. Even Kang's expression shifted by the smallest degree, though Mariselle could not tell if it was amusement or approval. Sable noticed Kang then. She looked him up and down, not impressed enough to be polite. And who are you? Mariselle closed her eyes briefly. Sable. Kang inclined his head. Kang Seojun. Sable froze for half a second, then recovered. Good, you look expensive. Are you helping or complicating? Kang answered without hesitation. Helping. Sable stared at him another beat. We'll see. Mariselle should have been embarrassed. Instead, a tiny, aching warmth moved through her. Her sister had come into the room like an emergency siren wrapped in love. Sable turned back to Mariselle. I was late because your message said gala parking was underground, and apparently rich people hide their entrances like villains. Then I get 27 texts from Kina saying Darius is engaged. Engaged? She spun toward Darius. You were at our mother's memorial dinner last month, talking about family. The room became quieter. Darius's eyes flickered. Marizelle's stomach tightened. That was the one place she had not wanted the night to go. Her mother. The fresh wound beneath every older wound. Sable saw her sister's face and immediately lowered her voice. Mari. But the damage had already happened. Kang noticed. Of course he did. His attention shifted to Mariselle with painful precision, not prying, just seeing. Darius seized the opening, stepping down with a wounded expression that almost looked sincere. If you did not know him, I cared about your mother. Don't rewrite everything, because tonight is difficult. Mariselle felt the room tilt again. Her mother had loved Darius, had trusted him, had told Mariselle near the end, "Baby, don't build a life where you're the only foundation." At the time, Mariselle thought illness had made her mother afraid. Now, the words returned like prophecy. Sable moved toward Darius, but Mariselle caught her wrist. No. Sable stopped because Mariselle asked, not because Darius deserved mercy. Mariselle looked at him. Don't use my mother to make yourself look human. The sentence left her softly, but it struck him hard. Darius looked away. Vivian's expression flickered then, not with compassion, but calculation. She was seeing the room turn. Alistair was too. This evening has clearly become emotionally charged. Alistair said into the microphone, "We will pause the presentation and reconvene after proper review." "No," Mariselle said. Alistair turned. "Excuse me?" Maricelle's hands were shaking, but her voice was not. "You don't get to pause now, that the truth is inconvenient. You were ready to take applause for stolen work 5 minutes ago." Sable whispered, "That's my girl." Kang remained silent, but his gaze stayed on Mariselle with an intensity that made her feel both exposed and strangely steady. Alistair's face hardened. "Be careful, miss." Kang stepped forward. "She has been." The words were quiet. "That is why she has proof." Tova lifted the tablet again. "I emailed copies to myself and to Miss King." Mariselle looked at her. "You did?" Tova nodded, tears gathering now. "Before I walked in. I was scared I'd lose my nerve." Maricelle's phone vibrated inside her clutch. Then again. Then again. She pulled it out. Emails appeared on her screen. Attachments, file names, original metadata, internal model revisions, deleted author notes, her name, her work, her proof. For the first time that night, Mariselle felt the floor beneath her. Darius saw the screen and went white. Vivian whispered something to him, sharp and furious. Alistair's hand tightened around the microphone. Kang looked at Mariselle. "Now you decide." Not he would decide. Not he would fix it. You decide. Sable squeezed her hand. "Whatever you want, I'm right here." The room waited. Darius waited. The stolen project waited behind her, glowing like a wound. Mariselle looked at the email, then at Darius, then at Kang Seojun. His face remained unreadable, but his eyes were not cold anymore. They held something focused, patient. Dangerous if she chose war. Her phone vibrated once more. This time it was not an email. It was a text from an unknown number. Mariselle opened it, and the breath left her body. "Stop this now, or your mother's house goes into foreclosure by morning." Sable leaned over, read the message, and went silent. Kang saw both their faces change. His voice lowered. "Mariselle." She looked up slowly. Across the room, Darius was staring at her phone, with fear in his eyes and guilt he could no longer hide. Mariselle read the message some 3 times, and every time the words became less like a threat and more like a hand closing around her throat. "Stop this now, or your mother's house goes into foreclosure by morning." The ballroom blurred at the edges. The chandeliers, the flowers, the expensive faces waiting for entertainment disguised as justice. All of it pulled away until only the phone remained in her hand, and the house appeared in her mind with painful clarity. The small brick home on Briar Lane, blue shutters. Her mother had painted herself one summer while singing old gospel songs through an open window. The porch swing that creaked whenever the wind shifted. The kitchen with yellow curtains, where Mariselle had learned that love could sound like a pot lid rattling and somebody humming while chopping onions. Her mother's house was not large. It was not impressive. It would never appear in a luxury magazine or sit inside one of Darius's glossy presentations. But it was the last place in the world where Mariselle still knew how to be someone's daughter. Sable's fingers tightened around her wrist. For once, her younger sister had no joke ready. "Mari," she whispered, and the fear in her voice told Mariselle she was not imagining the seriousness of it. Across the room, Darius stood frozen with his face too pale, his eyes fixed on the phone like he knew exactly what had appeared there. Mariselle looked at him slowly. The movement cost her. "Did you do this?" Darius's mouth opened. Vivienne whispered something sharp beside him, but he barely seemed to hear her. "Mariselle, this is complicated." Sable laughed once, cold and dangerous. "Oh, I know this man did not just say complicated. Did you do this?" Mariselle asked again. Her voice was softer now, and somehow that made the question worse. Darius rubbed a hand over his jaw, eyes flicking toward Alistair Ashcroft before returning to her. "The house has been in financial trouble for months." The sentence was meant to sound factual. It sounded rehearsed. Mariselle's stomach turned. "How would you know that?" He said nothing. The silence answered with teeth. Her mother had trusted him. During the illness, Darius had offered to help organize paperwork because Mariselle was exhausted from hospital shifts, foundation deadlines, and trying to act like grief was not slowly hollowing out her chest. He had sat at their kitchen table with loan statements, insurance letters, mortgage notices. He had told Mariselle not to worry, that he understood these things, that she already had enough on her shoulders. She remembered thanking him. Her fingers went numb around the phone. "You used her paperwork." Darius stepped forward. "I tried to help. You used my mother's house as leverage." "No." He shook his head quickly. "Too quickly. I didn't want it to get to this." Kang Seojun's voice entered the space with quiet precision. "But you prepared for it." Darius turned toward him with barely controlled anger. "You don't know anything." Kang looked at him for one long second. "I know when a man keeps takes a knife and calls himself peaceful because he has not used it yet." A murmur moved through the ballroom. Darius's face tightened. Alistair finally stepped down from the stage, his expression cool and irritated, like the entire room had become an inconvenience to his evening. "This has gone far enough." Kang's gaze shifted to him. "Has it?" Alistair ignored the question and addressed Mariselle with the polished patience of a man used to frightening people politely. "Miss King, whatever personal disagreement exists between you and Mr. Vale can be resolved elsewhere. If there are issues with your family property, I strongly suggest you tend to them privately instead of worsening your position." Mariselle stared at him. "My position? Yes." Alistair's smile did not reach his eyes. Public accusations have consequences. Sable moved forward, but Mariselle caught her hand without looking. She could feel her sister vibrating with rage. Kang saw it too. His attention moved from Sable's clenched fist to Mariselle's white-knuckled grip on her phone, then to the tablet still trembling in Tova's hands. He was watching everything. Not like a man searching for weakness, but like someone collecting the exact pieces of a truth others tried to scatter. "Who holds the note?" Kang asked. Alistair's face stilled. Darius looked down. Mariselle blinked. "What?" Kang did not take his eyes off Alistair. "The mortgage. The debt. Who owns it now?" Alistair's expression changed by a fraction, the smallest fracture in an expensive mask. "That is none of your concern. Then it is yours." The room went still again. Mariselle looked between them, her heartbeat turning heavy. "What does that mean?" Kang finally turned to her. His voice lowered, not gentle exactly, but careful. Sometimes distressed private mortgages are quietly purchased through investment arms. It gives leverage without fingerprints. The words moved slowly through Mariselle's mind before they became understanding. Her eyes returned to Alistair. You bought my mother's mortgage? Alistair's mouth tightened. Ashcroft Holdings manages a large portfolio. You bought my mother's mortgage, she repeated. This time it was not a question. Darius looked at her with something almost like apology. Almost. But apology without action was just another form of selfishness. Mariselle felt the betrayal spread wider. No longer just romantic, no longer just professional. They had not only stolen her work, they had studied her grief and found where to press. Sable's voice shook. Our mother died 6 months ago. Vivienne looked uncomfortable for the first time, though not enough to become kind. No one is attacking your mother. Sable turned on her. Do not say one word about my mother with that engagement ring on your finger. Vivienne's face hardened. Darius muttered, Sable, stop! Make me! Mariselle's closed her eyes briefly. The room was tilting toward chaos. She could feel it. The story was changing in real time, and everyone inside the ballroom was deciding which version would protect them best. Darius, the ambitious fiancé, Alistair, the visionary investor. Vivienne, the elegant woman dragged into drama. Mariselle, the emotional ex. Tova, the unstable assistant. Sable, the angry sister. They would package all of them by morning if given the chance. Kang seemed to understand this at the exact same moment. He pulled out his phone and typed something with his thumb. One message, then another. His face did not change. What are you doing? Mariselle asked quietly, making it harder for them to rewrite tonight. He slipped the phone away. Alistair's phone vibrated almost immediately. Then Darius's. Then two men near the front row looked down at theirs and exchanged a tense glance. The shift was subtle, but unmistakable. Power recognizing power. Mariselle watched Kang without meaning to. He stood still, controlled, severe under the chandelier light, but there was nothing careless in him. Even his anger wore a suit. He had not asked for her gratitude. He had not touched her unless she needed steadiness. He had not turned her pain into a stage for his ego. He simply noticed the room's pressure points and pressed back. You didn't have to do that, she said. Kang looked at her. I know. The answer was quiet. It unnerved her more than if he had claimed nobility. Sable leaned toward Mariselle and whispered, I don't know whether to trust him, but I like his timing. Under different circumstances, Mariselle might have laughed. Instead, her eyes drifted to Kang's hand. Long fingers. No wedding ring. A faint scar across one knuckle. He noticed her noticing and curled his hand slightly, not to hide it, but to remove the question before she felt caught. That small courtesy touched her in a place she did not want touched. Darius saw the exchange. His face twisted. Mariselle, can you stop looking at him like he's some savior? You don't know what men like him want. Kang did not react. Mariselle did. Slowly, she turned toward Darius. I know what you wanted. That silenced him. You wanted my patience when you were failing. My ideas when you were empty. My loyalty when you were building. My silence when you were leaving. And now you want my fear because you stole from me badly. Darius's eyes flashed. You think you're innocent in this? You loved feeling needed. The sentence hit too close, and he knew it. Mariselle's lips parted. For a second, every memory rose again. Her making soup when he was sick before a pitch. Her rewriting emails he was too proud to admit he could not write. Her saying yes to fewer needs so his could feel urgent. She had loved feeling needed, because needed was the closest thing to chosen she had known for too long. Kang's attention sharpened on her face, but he did not interrupt. That was the strange thing about him. He knew when silence was protection. Mariselle inhaled slowly. Maybe I did. Darius looked surprised. She stepped closer. But you loved needing me until someone richer made you feel chosen. Don't confuse my weakness with your worth. Sable whispered, Lord. A few guests shifted, visibly uncomfortable now, not because Mariselle was wrong, but because truth spoken cleanly left people nowhere polite to look. Darius looked wounded, and for the first time that night, Mariselle did not rush to repair it. Kang observed that too. She felt him notice the exact second she did not save Darius from the pain he had earned. His eyes remained on her with a focus that was beginning to feel personal. Not romantic yet, not safe enough for that, but personal, as if every time she chose herself, he saw more of her. Alistair cleared his throat. Miss King, I will give you one final opportunity to end this with dignity. Mariselle almost smiled. Whose dignity? Yours. No, Kang said before Alistair could continue. His voice did not rise, but the room obeyed it. You are offering her silence and calling it dignity. Alistair looked at him with barely concealed fury. Chairman Kang, you are interfering in an internal matter. I am declining investment in a compromised deal. Based on a spectacle, based on evidence. Kang looked toward Tova. Send the documents to my legal counsel. Tova froze. Me? Yes. I don't know your legal counsel. Kang removed a card from his jacket and held it out. Tova stared at it as if it were a loaded weapon. Mariselle took it gently and placed it in the young woman's hand. Only if you choose to, she said. Tova looked at her. The fear in her face did not vanish, but something steadied beneath it. I choose to. Darius cursed under his breath. Vivian gripped his arm. Darius. There was panic now, not open panic. Rich panic, quiet, controlled, vicious. Alistair turned away and spoke rapidly to a man in a gray suit near the stage. Sable watched them, then leaned close to Mariselle. They're moving. I know. No, Mari. I mean they're moving like people who already had backup plans. Mariselle followed her sister's gaze. 2 security men had appeared near the side entrance. One spoke into his sleeve. Another moved toward Tova. Kang noticed at the same time. His expression hardened. He stepped in front of Tova before anyone could reach her. Do not touch her. The security man stopped. Sir, Mr. Ashcroft requested. I know what he requested. Kang's voice was almost soft. I am telling you to refuse. The guard hesitated. That hesitation told the entire room exactly who Kang Seojun was. A man whose quiet instruction outweighed another. Another man's command. Sable breathed. Okay, expensive man. Mariselle shot her a look, but the corner of her mouth trembled despite everything. Kang heard it. The smallest flicker crossed his face. Not a smile, but close enough that Mariselle felt it like warmth near a window. Then his phone rang. He glanced at the screen and answered in Korean, voice low. Mariselle understood none of the words, but she understood tone. Controlled. Precise. Serious. His eyes moved once to her, then away. When he ended the call, the entire room seemed to wait. The foreclosure filing was prepared this afternoon, he said. Maricelle's stomach dropped. Sable's hand flew to her mouth. No. Kang continued, eyes on Alistair. It has not been executed. Alistair's face turned to stone. Darius looked physically sick. Kang stepped closer to Mariselle, lowering his voice so only she and Sable could hear. They can still be stopped. Mariselle looked up at him. How? By making the cost of touching that house greater than the value of the threat. His voice was calm, but there was something beneath it now. A contained fury that did not need volume because it had resources. Mariselle stared at him, suddenly aware of how close he was. The scent of cedar and rain on his suit, the steadiness of his breathing. the way his gaze did not wander when he spoke to her. He was looking at her as if her answer mattered more than everyone else's fear. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered. This time, Kang did not answer quickly. His eyes held hers. For a moment, the ballroom disappeared again, and all that remained was the impossible quiet between a woman used to being used and a man who had started noticing too much. "Because you asked me to act like I loved you," he said. Her breath caught. Kang's voice lowered further. "And he believed it because he knew you deserved better." Mariselle could not speak. Sable looked between them, suddenly silent. Darius watched from across the room, jealousy burning openly now, but Mariselle barely saw him. Kang stepped back, restoring the space like he understood exactly how dangerous tenderness could feel after betrayal. Then the ballroom doors burst open. A woman in a cream coat hurried inside, rain shining on her shoulders. A leather folder clutched against her chest. She looked directly at Mariselle. "Miss King?" Mariselle turned. "Yes." The woman rushed forward, breathless. "I'm Lenora Pike, from Briar Lane Mutual. Your mother left a signed letter with our office before she died." Mariselle went completely still. "My mother?" Lenora nodded, eyes flicking nervously toward Alistair and Darius. "She said, if anyone ever tried to use the house against you, I should give this to you in person." She held out the letter folder. Mariselle took it with shaking hands. Slowly, she opened it. Inside was her mother's handwriting, familiar, slanted, alive. "My Mari, if you are reading this, then someone has mistaken your love for weakness again." Mariselle's vision blurred. Before she could read the next line, Darius stepped forward with a desperate look on his face. "Mariselle, don't open that here." Kang turned toward him. His eyes were cold now. "Why are you afraid of a dead woman's letter?" Nobody spoke. The ballroom seemed to contract around a single question. "Why are you afraid of a dead woman's letter?" Darius stared at Kang Seojun, as though the man had reached inside his chest and exposed something he had spent months trying to bury. "Because this isn't the place," as Darius said at last. His answer came too quickly, too defensively, too late. Mariselle looked down at the leather folder in her hands. Her mother's handwriting waited inside it, slanted and familiar, alive in a way nothing had felt alive since the funeral. For a moment, the room disappeared. She was back in the small kitchen on Briar Lane, back before hospital corridors and sympathy casseroles and test nights, sleepless nights besides letters, her mother's. Standing barefoot near the stove, stirring pepper soup while sunlight poured through yellow curtains. "People will love how much you give, baby." Mariselle had laughed then. "What kind of advice is that?" Her mother had smiled sadly. The kind women learn too late. The memory hit so hard her knees weakened. Sybil moved beside her instantly, one hand firm at her elbow. "Hey, just one word, but sister language. The language that meant breathe. The language that meant I'm here. The language that meant fall later, not in front of them." Mariselle nodded slowly, then opened the letter. The paper crackled softly. The room watched. For once, nobody interrupted. "My Mari, if you are reading this, then someone has mistaken your love for weakness again. I pray I'm wrong." But mothers notice things daughters excuse, especially when they are in love. A small sound escaped Sable, half laugh, half sob. Mariselle's fingers tightened on the page, but she kept reading. "If the person standing across from you is asking you to become smaller so they can feel bigger, walk away. If they need your gifts, but not your voice, walk away. If they only value what you build after someone else praises it, walk away. You were not born to spend your life auditioning for appreciation." The silence became painful. Even the people who wanted to dismiss her could not look fully away now. The letter had stripped the evening of elegance. All that remained was truth standing under expensive light. Mariselle swallowed and continued. You got that from your father. The stubbornness, the kindness. The dangerous habit of believing people are who they promise they will become. Don't let anyone punish you for loving honestly. And don't stay where honesty is treated like a flaw. Her vision blurred. A tear slipped free. Just one. She wiped it away quickly, but Kang saw. Of course he saw. Not because he stared. Because he noticed everything. And somehow noticing her with a precision that made hiding feel useless. The last paragraph waited at the bottom, and one more thing. The house is yours. Not because it is valuable, not because it is land, not because it is an asset, because it is proof. Proof that your family existed. Proof that your mother loved you. Proof that no matter how powerful someone looks, nobody gets to decide your worth. Not a man, not money, not grief, not failure, nobody. The final line was underlined. Choose the people who choose you. Mariselle lowered the page slowly. The words remained in her chest like a door opening. Darius had not moved. His expression had changed in a way she'd never seen before. Not angry, not smug, afraid. And suddenly Mariselle understood why. The letter had done something the stolen proposal, the engagement, and even the threat against the house had not fully managed. It had reminded her who she was before him. That was far more dangerous than proof. Alistair Ashcroft cleared his throat, smoothing one hand down the front of his tuxedo, as if dignity could be adjusted like fabric. This has become deeply unfortunate. Sable turned her head slowly. That is what you took from all this. Vivian's mouth tightened. Alistair ignored her. Misuse King. If your concerns are financial, Ashcroft Holdings can discuss a settlement. The word hit the room wrong. Settlement. As if they were negotiating damage to a car. As if grief had a price sheet. As if theft became polite once lawyers entered the room. Mariselle folded the letter carefully and placed it back into the folder. Then, she looked directly at him. You think this is about money. I think practical solutions exist. No. You think if the number is large enough, I'll stop talking. Alistair's expression cooled. Public accusations can become expensive. So can public theft. The room shifted. Sable's eyebrows rose. Kang's gaze moved to Mariselle, and something quiet passed across his face. Not surprise. Approval. Darius stepped forward. Mariselle, please. Think for 1 second. She turned toward him. I have been thinking for 4 years, he flinched. You're angry. No, she shook her head. I was angry when I saw you with Vivian. I was hurt when you called me an old friend. I was humiliated when you let this room look at me like I was some woman who couldn't accept being left. Her voice lowered. But this is clarity. Darius stared at her as if he had never seen her before. Maybe he had not. Maybe for 4 years, he had only seen the parts of her that served him. The patient woman, the useful woman, the forgiving woman, the woman who could be wounded quietly and still answer his call. Kang watched from a short distance, silent, his hands relaxed at his sides, but there was nothing relaxed in his attention. He was studying the way Mariselle stood, the way she no longer leaned toward Darius's moods, the way her grief had turned into something disciplined. She felt his gaze without looking at him. It steadied her more than she wanted to admit. Tova stepped forward with the tablet clutched to her chest. She was still shaking, but she stood anyway. I have backups. Every head turned. Darius's face went white. Tova swallowed. The files were uploaded to a cloud archive. There are timestamps from months before Mr. Vale submitted anything. There are drafts with Miss King's notes, her interviews, her name in the author history. Darius cursed under his breath. Tova flinched, but she did not step back. Sable noticed and moved closer to the young woman. Baby, keep talking. We are all ears now. Tova took a breath. There are also internal revision notes. The tenant protections were removed after the proposal was brought to Ashcroft. The public version says one thing, the investor version says another. A wave of murmurs moved through the room. Not sympathy. Calculation. People looking at one another, realizing cameras might exist, emails might leak, reputations might be named. Alistair's jaw tightened. That is confidential company material. Kang answered before Tova could shrink. Evidence of misconduct does not become moral because you label it confidential. Alistair turned to him, fury finally showing through the polish. You are overstepping. I have not started. The sentence was quiet, deadly. The room felt suddenly smaller around Kang Seojun. Darius stepped toward Mariselle again, desperation sharpening his face. You don't know what you're doing. If you push this, you'll destroy everything. Mariselle looked at him. Everything for who? He opened his mouth, then closed it. For us, he said finally, but the word sounded dead before it reached her. There is no us. Darius's eyes flickered. Pain crossed his face, and for one cruel second, some old instinct inside Mariselle moved to comfort him. She saw it in herself. The habit. The muscle memory of love. Kang saw it too. His gaze sharpened. But he did not interfere. He let her choose. Mariselle breathed through the ache and did not move toward Darius. The old instinct passed. Something new remained. Darius noticed. His expression changed from pleading to resentment. So that's it? 4 years, and now you're standing beside a man you met tonight like he knows you. Kang's face remained unreadable, but Mariselle felt the tension in the air around him. She turned fully toward Darius. He listened to me for 5 minutes better than you did for 4 years. The room went completely still. Darius looked as if she had struck him. Vivian looked at Mariselle with something almost like hatred, but beneath it was something uglier. Fear that the woman she dismissed might become the center of a story Vivian could not control. Sable whispered, "That one hurt my feelings, and it wasn't even for me." A faint sound moved through the guests, almost laughter, almost release. Kang's mouth did not smile, but his eyes shifted. Mariselle saw it and looked away too quickly. That tiny moment did more damage than it should have. Because attraction, real attraction, did not arrive like thunder. Sometimes it arrived as the strange safety of being seen at your strongest and not being asked to soften it. Alistair lifted a hand. Enough, security. The guards near the side entrance moved. Kang turned his head. Stop. They stopped. Not because he shouted, because his voice carried consequence. Alistair's face reddened. This is my event. Kang looked at him. Then you should have protected it from fraud. A phone began recording near the back, then another. Sable saw it first. Oh, people are filming now. Great. Everybody get my good side. Sable, Mariselle whispered. What? If they were going to watch your humiliation, they can watch your comeback in HD. Vivian snapped. This is not a performance. Sable looked at her engagement ring, then at Darius. No, babe. Yours was. Vivian's face went still. Darius grabbed her arm lightly. Don't. That one word exposed more than he intended. Don't respond. Don't lose control. Don't make this worse for me. Vivian pulled her arm free, her eyes cold now. Did you steal it? Darius turned to her. Vivian, did you steal it? The question from her mouth changed the room again. Until that moment, Vivian had been defending her position, not truth. But reputation had a way of making even selfish people seek facts when lies threatened to attach themselves permanently. Darius looked trapped. I adapted materials Mariselle and I discussed during our relationship. Mariselle laughed once, soft, empty. He still can't say it. Kang looked at Darius. Say what? Darius's eyes flashed. Stay out of this. Say her name. The air tightened. Darius blinked. Kang took one slow step closer. Say her full name and what she created. Darius said nothing. Kang's voice lowered. You wanted her invisible when she was useful. Now you cannot acknowledge her when she is standing in front of you. Maricelle's chest tightened. Her name. Such a simple thing. Such a devastating absence. Darius stared at the floor. For the first time all night, he looked small. Vivienne stepped away from him. Just one step. But everyone saw. Darius saw too. Panic moved through his face. Vivienne, she did not answer. Alistair moved toward her. This is not the time. Kang glanced at Mariselle. It is exactly the time. Then he turned slightly, addressing the room without raising his voice. My company will fund an independent review of the Crown Meridian proposal, including authorship, financial revisions, and tenant impact changes. Any investor who remains attached to the current version after tonight will do so publicly. A silence followed. Then phones started moving faster. Investors whispering, staff exchanging looks. Lawyers, assistants, board members, all suddenly awake. Mariselle stared at Kang. You can do that? Yes. Why? He looked at her. Because your proposal deserves to survive the people who stole it. Her lips parted. No one had ever said anything like that to her. Not you deserve revenge. Not you deserve pity. Your work deserves to survive. He had seen the thing beneath the heartbreak, the thing she had built, the thing she had loved, the thing Darius tried to bury under his name. The room blurred for a second, but this time not from pain, from being recognized. Sable looked between them again, quieter now. Tova wiped her cheek with the heel of her hand. Even Vivienne seemed thrown by the calm certainty in Kang's voice. Darius, however, looked like a man watching the life he planned slip through his fingers. Mariselle, he said, voice breaking in the middle. Please don't do this. She looked at him. There it was. The plea she once dreamed of hearing, the desperation, the urgency, the fear of losing her. But now it sounded different, because it was different. He was not afraid of losing her heart. He was afraid of losing what he had taken from it. I'm not doing anything to you, she said. I'm just not protecting you from yourself anymore. His face crumpled briefly before he forced it back into place. Kang turned toward Mariselle. You need legal counsel before speaking further. Sable raised a hand. I vote yes, because I am one insult away from committing a felony in heels. Mariselle exhaled, almost laughing and almost crying. Kang's gaze flicked to Sable. I can arrange counsel tonight? Mariselle stiffened. I can't afford. You won't owe me. You keep saying that, because you keep thinking kindness is a trap. The words were quiet. Too accurate. Mariselle looked away. Sable stopped joking. The room continued to hum around them, but for a moment, the tension became private. Kang stepped slightly closer, lowering his voice. Mariselle. It was the first time he had said her name like that. Not as a public fact, not as defense, as if the sound mattered. She looked at him despite herself. This arrangement can protect you, publicly, legally, financially, but only if you agree. Her brows drew together. Arrangement? He held her gaze. Darius and Ashcroft will attack your credibility by morning. They will say you are emotional, bitter, unstable. They will say I was manipulated into interfering. Marizelle's stomach dropped because she knew he was right. She could already see the headlines crafted in private. Disgruntled XX interrupts, gala. Unverified claims threaten landmark project. Chairman Kang caught in personal drama. Kang continued. If you stand beside me formally, even temporarily, they lose that story. Sable's eyes narrowed. Formally how? Kang did not look away from Mariselle. As my strategic partner on the review. Darius laughed bitterly. Strategic partner? She has no company. Kang's eyes cut to him. She has the idea. I have the company. The silence that followed was electric. Maricelle's breath caught. Sable whispered, I know that's right. Kang returned his attention to Mariselle. You would not be hidden. You would not be introduced as an old friend. You would be named. The word struck the deepest bruise. Named. For years, she had lived in footnotes, in acknowledgments, in whispered gratitude that never reached the rooms where decisions were made. And what do you get? She asked. Kang's expression did not change, but something in his eyes did. The truth, that's not a business answer. No. His gaze remained steady. It is mine. Mariselle did not know what to do with him. He was offering protection without ownership, power without performance, proximity with boundaries. That made him more dangerous than any obvious seduction would have been. Darius stepped closer, voice low and furious. You can't be serious. You met him tonight. Mariselle looked at him, then at Vivienne, standing 2 feet away from him, with a ring he had chosen while still kissing. Mariselle, good night. You got engaged while loving me yesterday, she said. Don't lecture me about timing. Darius went silent. Kang extended his hand, palm open, not demanding. No pressure, no debt. You can say no. Mariselle stared at his hand. The same hand that had steadied her in front of the room. The same hand that had stopped Darius from grabbing her. The same hand that had touched hers for 2 seconds when her stolen dream appeared on the screen. Her mother's letter rested against her chest in the folder. Choose the people who choose you. Slowly, Mariselle placed her hand in Kang's. The room reacted instantly. Gasps, whispers, phones rising. Darius looking shattered and furious at once. Kang's fingers closed gently around hers. Not possession, confirmation. Then we leave together, he said. Sable grabbed Tova's arm. You too, receipt queen. We are not leaving evidence with Villazans. Tova nodded quickly. Kang guided Mariselle toward the exit, and this time every step felt different. Not escape, not defeat, a public refusal to be buried. As they reached the ballroom doors, Darius's voice rang out behind them. Mariselle, if you walk out with him, don't ever come back to me. She stopped. For one final second, everyone waited to see if the old Mariselle would turn around, the woman who explained, the woman who softened, the woman who apologized for needing dignity. She did turn, but only halfway. Her eyes met his across the wreckage of the evening. Darius, she said softly, that was the first kind thing you've said tonight. Then she walked out with Kang Seojun, her hand still in his. In the corridor, the noise fell behind them like a curtain. Sable and Tova followed close, whispering urgently. Kang released Maricelle's hand the moment they were out of sight, as if he remembered her freedom before she had to sort for it. That almost undid her. My car is outside, he said. My legal team is already waiting. Mariselle nodded, then looked down at the place where his hand had held hers. Her skin still remembered. Kang noticed, his gaze softened by one impossible degree. Are you afraid? He asked. She looked up at him. Of them? Of this. The hallway lights reflected in his dark eyes. This. The arrangement. The fight. Him. Mariselle answered honestly before fear could edit her. Yes. Kang nodded once. Good. Her brow furrowed. Good. Fear means you understand the cost. His voice lowered. Courage is choosing anyway. Before she could respond, the elevator doors opened at the end of the corridor. A man stepped out in a long charcoal coat, rainwater shining on his shoulders. Older. Korean. Severe. The resemblance to Kang was immediate and undeniable, though his face carried none of Kang's restraint. Kang went still. The man's eyes moved from to Mariselle, then to their almost touching hands. His expression hardened. He spoke in a low voice. Seojun, tell me she is not the reason you just declared war on Ashcroft. Kang's jaw tightened. Mariselle felt the air change. Then Kang stepped slightly in front of her and answered in English, cold and clear. No, father. She is the reason I finally stopped pretending they were worth peace. The elevator doors remained open. Nobody moved. The older man stood beneath the silverway lights, slight rain still glistening across the shoulders of his charcoal coat, his eyes fixed on Mariselle with the kind of scrutiny powerful men often mistook for wisdom. Not curiosity, not kindness, assessment, the kind reserved for acquisitions, threats, and variables. Kang Seojun did not move. Father, he said again calmly. The older man's jaw tightened. Do not embarrass me. The sentence carried history. Years of expectation compressed into 4 words. Sable immediately folded her arms. Oh, I don't like him. Tova looked like she wanted to disappear into the nearest wall. Mariselle swallowed. Kang Sunwoo stepped fully out of the elevator. Every movement looked deliberate, controlled, expensive. The resemblance between father and son was impossible to ignore. The same height, the same sharp features, the same quiet authority, yet somehow entirely different. Kang Seojun felt like a storm held behind glass. His father felt like winter. Chairman Kang Sunwoo, he said, I assume you've heard of me. Mariselle nodded politely. Yes. Then you understand the consequences of attaching yourself to my son. The hallway went silent. Sable looked offended on Maricelle's behalf before anyone had even finished speaking. Mariselle met Kang Sunwoo's gaze steadily. I don't believe people are consequences. Something shifted in his eyes. Not approval. Interest. An idealistic answer. An honest one. Kang Sunwoo studied her another moment. Then he looked at his son. You have legal counsel waiting downstairs. Ashcroft is already calling board members. Investors are panicking. Reporters are asking questions. Yet somehow you are standing in a hallway discussing philosophy. Kang's expression didn't change. The investors can wait. No. His father stepped closer. They cannot. The tension between them was immediate, familiar, practiced. This was not a new argument. This was an old wound wearing new clothes. Mariselle saw it instantly. Sons and fathers often fought over power. This felt different. This felt personal. You are risking billions, Kang Sunwoo said. For what? His eyes moved briefly toward Mariselle. For her? Kang's jaw tightened. Be careful. The warning came quietly. His father noticed. So did Mariselle. So did Sable. Everybody noticed. Kang Sunwoo's expression hardened. You are proving my point. No. Kang's voice remained controlled. You are. The older man's eyes narrowed. Explain. Kang took one slow step forward. You walked into this hallway and immediately assumed she was the problem. Silence. You did not ask what happened. Another silence. You did not ask why Ashcroft is panicking. Another. You saw a woman standing beside me and decided she must be the risk. Kang Sunwoo's face became unreadable. Mariselle felt her chest tighten unexpectedly. Nobody had ever defended her like this. Not publicly, not privately, not when it cost something. Darius had always defended himself first. Kang seemed incapable of doing that. His father folded his hands behind his back. And what is she? Kang answered immediately. The author of the proposal and the victim of theft. And, for the first time, Kang hesitated. Just briefly. His father noticed. Sable noticed. Mariselle wished she hadn't. Kang's eyes flickered toward her for a fraction of a second before returning to his father. And someone who deserved better than what happened tonight. The silence that followed felt strangely intimate. Mariselle looked away first. Her pulse had become difficult to ignore. Kang Sunwoo studied his son carefully. Then, unexpectedly, he looked at Mariselle again. "Tell me something. Okay, why did you agree to stand beside him?" Mariselle blinked. Of all the questions she's expected, that wasn't one of them. "Because he asked?" "No." His voice remained cool. "My son doesn't ask. He offers. There is a difference." Kang looked mildly annoyed. "Father," let her answer. Mariselle considered the question honestly. "Because he didn't try to own the situation." "Nobody spoke," she continued. "Everyone else kept deciding what I should do, what I should accept, what I should tolerate. He was the only person who kept asking what I wanted." Kang Sunwoo's eyes narrowed slightly. "Interests," Sable pointed. "See, she has excellent taste." "Sable," Mariselle whispered. "What?" "I'm supporting the narrative." Tova nearly laughed. Kang looked suspiciously close to smiling before he suppressed it. His father noticed that too. That seemed to disturb him most of all. A phone suddenly rang. Kang glanced at the screen and answered immediately. He listened without speaking for nearly 30 seconds. Then his expression changed, not dramatically, just enough. "When?" he asked. Silence. "I see." Another pause. "Lock everything down." He ended the call. Mariselle's stomach dropped. "What happened?" Kang looked directly at her. "Ashcroft just terminated every employee connected to the proposal review." Tova went white. "What?" "Including you." The young woman stumbled backward. Sable caught her before she lost balance. "Oh no." Tova's eyes filled instantly. "My mother depends on my insurance." Mariselle moved toward her immediately. "We'll figure it out." Tova shook her head. "You don't understand. I can't lose this job." "You already did," Kang said quietly. Tova looked devastated. Then Kang continued, "But you won't be unemployed." Everyone looked at him. "What?" Tova whispered. Kang pulled out his phone. "My foundation needs compliance analysts." Tova blinked. "What?" "Your employment starts Monday." The hallway went completely silent. Tova stared at him. "You haven't even interviewed me. I don't need to. What if I'm not qualified?" Kang tilted his head slightly. "You risked your career to protect people you've never met." His voice remained calm. "Qualifications can be taught." Tova started crying, not dramatically, just suddenly. The kind of crying exhausted people do when they discover they don't survive one more disaster alone. Mariselle watched the exchange and felt something shift deeper inside her. Earlier, she had admired Kang, then respected him, then trusted him. This felt more dangerous, because she was starting to understand his character, and character was much harder to defend against than charm. Kang Sunwoo observed the entire interaction carefully. Then he sighed. "You always do this." Kang looked at him. "Do what?" "Collect strays." The words landed badly. Mariselle felt Tova stiffen beside her. Sable's eyes narrowed. Kang's expression went cold instantly. "Leave." His father blinked. "Excuse me." "Leave." The temperature in the hallway seemed to drop. "You do not get to speak about people that way." Kang Sunwoo stared at his son. For a moment, neither man moved. Then something unexpected happened. The older man's expression softened. Barely, but enough. "You sound like your mother." The silence that followed felt different, sadder somehow. Kang looked away. Mariselle noticed immediately. There it was, the wound. Everybody had one. Kang's just happened to be hidden better than most. His father noticed her notice these things. "Interesting," he murmured. Kang's eyes snapped back toward him. "Father, relax." The older man adjusted his cuff. "I'm leaving." He turned toward the elevator, then paused. "One warning." Nobody spoke. "Ashcroft won't stop." He looked directly at Mariselle. "People like Alistair don't fear morality. They fear embarrassment." "Good," Sable muttered. Because he's getting both. Kang Sunwoo ignored her. You embarrassed him publicly. He looked at Kang. Now he'll retaliate privately. The elevator doors opened again. Be careful. Then he stepped inside and disappeared. The doors closed. The silence lingered. Finally, Sable exhaled. Well, that family definitely doesn't hug enough. Tova laughed through her tears. Even Mariselle smiled. Kang rubbed the back of his neck briefly. The gesture surprised her because it was the first genuinely human thing she'd seen him do all evening. Not controlled, not calculated, just tired. You okay? She asked before thinking. Kang looked at her. The question seemed to catch him off guard. I'm fine. That means no. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise again. Then something warmer. You noticed that. Mariselle immediately wished she hadn't said anything. But Kang continued watching her. Most people don't. The moment stretched. Dangerous, quiet, personal. Sable suddenly cleared her throat loudly. I hate interrupting, whatever this is. She absolutely did not. But we're trending. Everyone looked at her. She held up her phone. What? Mariselle asked. Sable turned the screen around. Videos from the gala flooded social media. Darius, the proposal, the confrontation, Kang taking Maricelle's hand. The comments were moving so fast they blurred. Mariselle stared. Oh, oh, Sable laughed. Girl, you're viral. Tova looked over her shoulder. Thousands of comments. Millions of views, Sable corrected. Kang took the phone. His expression hardened immediately. No. Marizelle's stomach dropped. What? He turned the screen toward her. A new article had just appeared. The headline read, Jilted Ex Sabotages $1 billion development after public breakdown. Beneath it was a photograph, not from tonight, from 6 months ago. Mariselle leaving her mother's funeral, crying, alone. The air vanished from her lungs. No, she whispered. Sable's face went white. Tova covered her mouth. Someone had taken one of the worst days of her life and turned it into evidence against her. Kang's jaw tightened. The article continued. Anonymous sources claim Miss King has struggled emotionally since her mother's death and may be acting out of personal instability rather than legitimate professional concerns. Mariselle couldn't breathe. The hallway tilted. There it was. Exactly what Kang predicted. Emotional, bitter, unstable. The oldest weapon in the world dressed in modern language. She felt herself sway slightly. Kang noticed instantly. Mariselle. She didn't answer. Couldn't. Her mother's funeral. Her grief. Her pain. They were using all of it. Kang looked at the article once more. Then his face became completely expressionless. Somehow that was worse. Who published it? Sable asked. Kang named a media company. Then he made a call. Immediately, remove it. Silence. I don't care who approved it. Another silence. Remove it. He ended the call. Will they? Mariselle asked quietly. Kang looked at her. Eventually. Eventually? Yes. His voice remained calm. Because if they don't, I'll buy the company. Nobody spoke. Sable blinked. Tova blinked. Mariselle stared at him. Kang seemed completely serious. Then his phone vibrated again. He looked down. For the first time all night, genuine surprise crossed his face. What? Mariselle asked. Slowly, Kang turned the screen toward her. It was a text message from Darius. Just 6 words. I made a mistake. Meet me. Tonight. The hallway went silent. Then another message appeared. This one longer. If you don't come, they'll destroy you. Marizelle's stomach tightened, but before anyone could speak, a third message arrived. This one made Kang's entire expression change. Mariselle read it and felt the blood drain from her face, because attached to the message was a photograph. A photograph of her mother's house, and standing on the front porch, speaking to 2 men in suits, was Alistair Ashcroft himself. Mariselle stared at the photograph until the edges of the phone blurred. Her mother's house stood under the weak glow of the porch light, blue shutters darkened by rain, the porch swing hanging still beside the front window. Alistair Ashcroft stood on the steps in his black tuxedo coat, like a shadow that had learned manners, speaking to two men in suits, while another man held a folder beneath his arm. It was not a warning anymore. It was an invasion. Sable made a sound so sharp it barely sounded human. He went to the house? Tova covered her mouth. Kang Seojun's hand closed around the phone, but he did not take it from Mariselle. He waited. Even now, he waited for her choice. That almost broke her. Darius's messages remained on the screen. I made a mistake. Meet me. Tonight. If you don't come, they'll destroy you. The photograph, below those words, felt like proof that every man who had ever called himself powerful thought a woman's pain was just another door he could force open. Mariselle lifted her eyes slowly. Take me there. Kang's expression hardened. Mariselle's, that's my mother's house. I know. Then take me there. Sable grabbed her arm. I'm coming. No, Kang said. Sable spun toward him. Excuse me. His voice stayed calm, but his eyes were already somewhere else, calculating exits, threats, timing, the whole battlefield. You and Tova go with my security to my office. Send every file to legal, every email, every screenshot, every video. If anything happens at Briar Lane, the evidence must already be out of reach. Sable's anger faltered because the logic was brutal and correct. She looked at Mariselle. Mari. Mariselle squeezed her sister's hand. I need you to protect the proof. Sable's eyes filled, but she nodded. And who protects you? Before Mariselle could answer, Kang did. I do. The words were simple. No performance. No chest beating. No attempt to make the moment romantic. That was why they landed so deeply. Sybil stared at him for a long second. If anything happens to my sister, I will become the problem your family warned you about. Kang inclined his head once. Fair. Even now, Mariselle almost smiled. Then Kang turned and moved toward the elevator, not rushed, not panicked, but fast enough that everyone understood the night had entered its final act. The ride down was silent. Mariselle stood beside him with her mother's letter clutched against her chest and her phone cold in her hand. The mirrored walls of the elevator reflected them in fragments. Her black satin dress, his black suit, the space between them, the distance that felt smaller with every breath. Kang looked at her reflection instead of directly at her. You don't have to confront him tonight. Yes, I do. Why? Mariselle swallowed. Because if I let him stand on that porch without answering for it, I'll never feel safe in that house again. Kang's jaw tightened. Then we make sure he is the one who never feels safe there again. She looked at him. He did not soften the sentence. He meant it. Outside, rain fell over the hotel entrance in thin silver lines. A black car waited by the curb, engine running, driver already holding the door. Kang opened the door for her, then paused. Last chance to change your mind. Mariselle looked past him at the city, at the wet streets shining beneath traffic lights, at the world continuing as if her whole life had not been dragged into one brutal evening. I'm done changing my mind to make cruel people comfortable. Kang held her gaze. Something moved in his eyes then, not admiration. More intimate than that, recognition. Good, he said softly. They drove through the city in near silence. Mariselle watched buildings slide past the rain-streaked window while her body remembered every version of Briar Lane. Her mother on the porch waving when Mariselle left for college, Sable arguing with delivery men in the driveway, Darius arriving with flowers during her mother's chemo treatments, looking so gentle then, so trustworthy, so capable of being loved. She wondered how much of him had been real. Then she wondered why women were always expected to answer that question kindly. Kang sat beside her, one hand resting on his knee, the other holding his phone as messages came in non-stop. He answered few of them. Most he ignored. "Your father was right," Mariselle said quietly. Kang looked over. "About what? What?" "Retaliation. My father is often right about enemies. And wrong about people." His gaze held on her for a second longer than necessary. Often, the word carried weight. She wanted to ask about his mother, about the wound she had seen open in him when his father mentioned her. But the night was too full already, and Kang seemed like a man who did not offer his past until someone had earned the door. Still, after a moment, he spoke. "My mother used to say my father confused peace with silence." Mariselle turned from the window. "She sounds wise." She was. "Is she?" She stopped herself. Kang's eyes moved to the rain outside. Gone. The word was controlled. Too controlled. Mariselle understood that kind of control. Grief dressed well when it did not want strangers asking questions. "I'm sorry," she said. Kang nodded once. "She would have liked your mother's letter." The sentence entered her gently. Mariselle looked down at the folder in her lap. "My mother would have liked you." Kang went still. She regretted saying it immediately, not because it was false, but because it felt too true too soon. His gaze returned to her, slower this time. "Why?" "Because you listen before deciding what someone is worth." The car seemed to become smaller around them. Rain tapped softly against the roof. Kang's eyes did not leave hers. Mariselle. Her name and his voice felt dangerous now. Not because he wanted something, because she did. And wanting anything after betrayal felt like stepping onto glass. The driver turned onto Briar Lane before either of them could say more. Mariselle straightened. Her mother's house appeared at the end of the street. Porch light burning, rain shining on the steps. Alistair Ashcroft was still there. Darius stood beside him now, shoulders tense. His hair damp, his engagement night confidence gone. Two men in suits waited near a black town car. Kang's driver stopped at the curb. Before Kang could open his door, Mariselle touched his sleeve. "Don't speak first." He looked at her hand, then at her face. "Okay, I need to, I know." And he did. That was the terrifying part. He knew when to stand in front of her and when to stand beside her. She stepped out into the rain. It hit her hair, her face, her satin dress, cold and cleansing. Darius turned first. His face changed when he saw her. Relief, fear, longing, anger, all fighting for space. Mariselle. She walked through the gate without answering. Kang followed a few steps behind, close enough to protect, far enough not to claim the scene. Alistair looked irritated rather than ashamed. "Miss King's, this could have been avoided if you had accepted a private conversation." Mariselle stopped at the bottom of the porch steps. "You came to my mother's house. This property is tied to a financial matter." "No." Her voice stayed calm. "This property is tied to my mother. You found a debt, bought it quietly, held it like a weapon, and came here tonight because you thought grief would make me obedient." Alistair's expression remained cold. "You are making serious allegations." Mariselle lifted her phone, and recording them. Darius's eyes widened. Alistair went still. Kang said nothing, but Mariselle could feel the approval in his silence. She had learned. She was not standing here with only pain anymore. She had proof. Darius stepped down one step. "Mari, please. I didn't know he would come here." She looked at him. "But you knew he could." He swallowed. "I wanted to fix it." "No, you wanted to control how badly it broke." Rain slid down his face. For the first time all night, he looked stripped of performance. "I loved you." The words arrived too late, too wet, too desperate. Mariselle stared at him and felt the old wound stir, not because she believed him fully, but because some part of her had once wanted those words so badly, she would have forgiven almost anything to hear them. Maybe, she said softly. Darius looked up, hope flashing in his eyes. Then she finished. But you loved yourself more in every moment that mattered. The hope died. Alistair exhaled impatiently. This is sentimental nonsense. Kang moved then, 1 step. His voice was quiet. Be careful. Alistair turned toward him. You cannot keep inserting yourself into every conversation around this woman. Kang's face remained still. I can when men keep threatening her. You barely know her. Kang looked at Mariselle. Rain had softened nothing about her. If anything, standing there with her mother's house behind her, eyes steady despite everything, she looked more herself than she had all night. I know enough, he said. Darius laughed bitterly. You know enough? You met her a few hours ago. Kang did not look away from Mariselle. I know she says no and means it. Silence. I know she notices when people are afraid and protects them anyway. Tova. I know she built something humane in an industry that rewards cruelty. The proposal. I know she still asks if others are okay while her own life is being attacked. The hallway. I know she loved a man who used her, and when she finally saw him clearly, she chose dignity instead of revenge. Maricelle's breath caught. Kang finally turned to Darius. That is more than you knew after 4 years. Darius looked shattered, but Mariselle could barely look at him now. Her eyes were on Kang, because he had not described her beauty, not her body, not the superficial things men used when they wanted possession to sound like praise. He had described her character, her choices, the invisible things she thought no one had seen. Alistair stepped down from the porch, furious now. Enough. A car turned into the street behind them. Then another. Then another. Headlights cut through the rain. Doors opened. Sable stepped out first with Tove beside her, holding the tablet like a holy weapon. Behind them came 2 lawyers, 3 members of Kang's team, and 1 woman Mariselle recognized from the City Housing Commission. Reporters followed from 2 cars, cameras shielded beneath umbrellas. Alistair's face changed completely. Kang glanced at Mariselle. I told you we would make the cost greater than the threat. Sable marched through the gate. And I told you I was coming anyway. Mariselle stared at her. Sable, don't sable me. I protected the proof. Then I protected my right to be nosy. Tova held up the tablet. Everything is uploaded. Legal has copies. The original files, the internal revisions, the mortgage purchase trail, and the foreclosure preparation. One of Kang's lawyers stepped forward. Mr. Ashcroft, you are formally on notice. Any action against this property from this point forward will be treated as retaliatory and included in the filing. The Housing Commission. Commission woman turned to Mariselle. Miss King would like your cooperation in an immediate review of the Crown Meridian project. Darius looked around at the cameras, the lawyers, the witnesses, the collapse of every private pressure point he thought would remain hidden. He turned to Mariselle with something like panic. Please. Mariselle looked at him for a long moment. This was the man she had once imagined marrying, the man whose dreams she had carried like glass, the man who had mistaken her softness for a place to hide his ambition. I forgive the version of me that stayed, she said quietly, but I don't forgive what you did to her. Darius's face crumpled. Vivian's car pulled up then. She stepped out beneath an umbrella, still wearing her ivory gown, diamonds bright against the rain. For a moment, everyone stared. She walked to Darius, removed the engagement ring from her finger, and placed it in his palm. You made me look stupid, she said coldly. Then she turned to Mariselle. Her expression was not kind, but it was no longer amused. I won't pretend I liked you tonight. Mariselle almost smiled. I noticed. Vivienne inhaled. But he stole from you, and my father helped. Alistair barked. Vivienne. She looked at him. No. I will not be dragged down, because men in this family confuse reputation with innocence. Sable whispered, Okay, wedding cake got a spine. Vivienne ignored her. I'll testify to what I know. Darius stared at her, devastated. Vivienne. She stepped back. Don't! The same word he had used on her earlier returned, now like judgment. Cameras flashed. Rain fell harder. Alistair's lawyers began speaking rapidly, but the power had already shifted. Not completely. Wealth never collapsed in one night, but it cracked, and everyone had heard it. Mariselle turned toward the house. For the first time since her mother died, the porch did not look haunted by loss. It looked guarded, witnessed, hers. She climbed the steps slowly and stood beneath the small awning, her mother's letter pressed against her chest. Sable came beside her, then Tova, then Kang, stopping one step below, as if the porch belonged to Maricelle's grief, and he would not enter without permission. She looked down at him. You can come up. He did. The gesture was small. It felt enormous. The cameras continued behind them, but under the porch light, the world narrowed again. Kang stood beside Mariselle, while rain silvered the edge of his hair and darkened the shoulders of his suit. What happens now? She asked. Now they fight. And us? The question escaped before she could stop it. Kang turned slowly. His eyes met hers. Us? She almost looked away but didn't. Not this time. The arrangement. His gaze softened. The arrangement protects your work. And this, her voice was quiet. What protects this? For the first time all night, Kang looked uncertain. Not weak, not hesitant, human. Time, he said. Truth, a pause. And your permission. Mariselle's eyes burned, not from grief now, from the terrifying tenderness of being asked instead of taken. Darius watched from the gate, rain running down his face, finally seeing the woman he had lost. But Mariselle was not looking at him anymore. Kang reached into his coat and removed a folded handkerchief, offering it without touching her. She took it. Their fingers brushed. This time, neither of them moved away immediately. You asked me to act like I loved you, Kang said softly. Maricelle's breath caught. The rain made the night feel unreal. You were very convincing. His mouth almost curved. Almost. I wasn't acting by the end. The world stopped. Sable went completely silent behind them for the first time in her life. Mariselle stared at him, her heart moving toward danger and safety at the same time. Seojun. His name came out softly. It changed something in his face. I know you are not ready, he said. I know tonight cost you more than anyone here understands. I know you don't need another man making promises in the rain. He stepped a little closer, still leaving space. Always space. So I won't ask you to love me tonight. Her eyes filled. What will you ask? Kang looked at her like the answer mattered. Like she mattered. Let me keep choosing you until you believe it is safe. Mariselle closed her eyes for 1 second. Her mother's last words came back. Choose the people who choose you. When she opened them, Darius was still there at the gate. Alistair was still surrounded by lawyers. Cameras were still flashing. The fight was still waiting. But, for the first time in years, Mariselle did not feel like she was standing in the shadow of someone else's decision. She stepped closer to Kang, not into his arms. Not yet, but close enough for him to know she had chosen not to run. Slowly, she whispered. Kang's eyes held hers. As slowly as you need. Sable sniffed behind them. I'm crying, but I'm still watching him. Kang, without looking away from Mariselle, said, Fair. Mariselle laughed then. A real laugh. Small, broken at the edges, but alive. Kang looked at her like the sound was something he wanted to remember. Weeks later, the Crown Meridian story became bigger than one gala, one stolen proposal, or one public betrayal. Darius Vale's name disappeared from every deck. Ashcroft Holdings faced investigation. Vivienne testified. Tova began work at Kang's foundation and sent Mariselle a photo of her new desk with the caption, "Receipt Queen has arrived." Sable moved into the Briar Lane house temporarily, which everyone knew meant until she decided this house could survive without her commentary. And Mariselle King stood before a city review board in a cream suit, her curls loose, her mother's letter folded in her bag, presenting the revised Crown Meridian Renewal Initiative under her own name. Not as an old friend, not as a helper, not as a woman behind a man, as the author, as the founder of King Hearth Urban Design, as herself. Kang Seojun sat in the back row, silent, watchful, no cameras near him, no speech prepared. When the board applauded, Mariselle did not look down. She accepted it, all of it. Afterward, outside the building, Darius waited near the steps. He looked thinner, quieter, humbled in a way that still did not earn access. "Mariselle," he said. She stopped. But Kang did not step forward. He let the moment belong to her. Darius swallowed. "I'm sorry." This time, the apology sounded real. That did not make it useful. Mariselle nodded. "I hope you become someone who means that before consequences force you to." Darius's eyes shone. "Do you hate me?" She thought about it honestly, then shook her head. "No." He looked relieved for half a second. "But I don't carry you anymore." The relief vanished. Mariselle walked past him. Kang waited near the car. He did not ask what Darius said. He did not need to. Mariselle reached him, and after a breath, slipped her hand into his. His fingers closed around hers gently. Still not possession. Still confirmation. "Where to?" he asked. Mariselle looked at the city, at the sunlight catching the glass towers, at the future that no longer felt like something she had to earn through suffering. "Home," she said. Kang opened the car door, then paused. "Briar Lane?" Mariselle smiled. "For now." He studied her face, and that near smile touched his mouth again. And after, she looked at him, at the man who had begun as a lie in front of her ex and become the first person powerful enough to protect her without making her feel owned. "We'll see." Kang nodded, accepting even that as a gift. As the car pulled away, Mariselle glanced back once. Not at Darius, not at the past, at her own reflection in the window. She looked different. Not because pain had left her untouched, but because it had failed to make her smaller. Beside her, Kang's hand rested open between them. Waiting, patient, hers to take or not. Mariselle looked at it for a moment, then placed her hand in his. This time, she did not need anyone to act.